Greetings, humans. Zedbot 1496 here, coming to you from Zogplex to address a set of issues bubbling beneath the surface of our coverage of human rectangular forms, the very formats they arrive on. At this point, humans access their film and television content across several categories by accessing an external network such as broadcast, cable, or streaming, a local network such as a home server or hosted server, or physical media such as laser-encoded discs. This set of options represents a change from a more monolithic recent past that humans experienced, where there were fewer options. However, with those options comes a fragmentation of the full landscape of content, creating challenges in maintaining access to the full breadth of content and the quality of that content from a particular source. These challenges create tension, which is exacerbated by some of these formats being in active competition with each other. As humans invest in one option or another, these issues can activate a sense of tribal warfare among the humans consuming these formats. As humans take up the banners of their preferred formats, their arguments bubble over into online discussion forums and video sharing platforms, which prompts us to provide our perspective. But first, some context. At an orbital level, humans have roughly 9 forms of large-scale storytelling that operate as commercial art industries. 2 are reading-based, book and periodical publishing. 2 are listening-based, music and radio. 2 are performance-based, plays and concerts. 2 are moving visuals-based, film and television. And the 9th is interactive-based, games. All 9 storytelling industries have been dramatically impacted by new cultural and technological trends. The Internet, which is like an early form of Zognet, links humans' computers together, opening up multiple ways for each of these industries to reach new markets, while lowering the barriers for entry to consumers to become publishers of content themselves. Similarly, the introduction of mobile phones, which puts humans' computers in their pockets while connected to that internet, give humans a new level of convenience to both consume and participate in those content industries from anywhere they happen to be. For the scope of this editorial, we will focus our attention on the moving visuals-based storytelling industries, film and television. Now, both film and television have evolved along similar trajectories, from centralized celluloid and analog electromagnetic distribution models to modern digital versions. The film industry has created cascaded distribution windows to provide ongoing value to their intellectual property owners for their talent and capital contributions. For example, film has theatrical distribution to create the launch of new film content, followed by home video releases on streaming video purchase, physical disc, streaming video subscription, cable distribution, and broadcast distribution. Oh, hello, Fluffbot. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Wonderful. Fluffbot 1122, everyone. Now, television has evolved to provide more on-demand convenience to consumers, evolving from broadcast to cable to physical disc and streaming video distribution. Now, both industries have seen quality and fidelity improvements. However, as each of these industries were able to deliver a good enough version of their content to consumers, these consumers began to value convenience and control. And that's where the leading edge of those industries began to compete. Streaming became a major option as broadband internet penetration of homes and wireless mobile networks gave humans the flexibility to both subscribe only to the channels they wanted, as compared to bundling of the cable distribution monopolies, as well as the flexibility to watch good enough versions of their content in high resolution on a tablet or on a phone, while in bed or on the go. Furthermore, the lines between film and television became blurred, with streaming platforms moving up the cascading distribution window chain to actually debut some films. Furthermore, film took on more qualities of television as the content became more episodic, and television shows have become more short-form and higher budget, with talent, capital, and franchises moving seamlessly between the two. This evolution from one format to another has created adherence for each of them among human consumers. As it pertains to consuming human film and television on demand from a distance, as most in the galaxy would have to, we will address three of these formats: streaming, local server, and disk. Now, streaming is the convenience format. Your content is attached to your account. You can buy the movies and TV shows you want a la carte, and also subscribe to streaming networks with a medium level of fine-tuned targeting relative to the all-in-one option of cable. You have your content wherever you are, whenever you have an online connection, and in most cases can plan ahead to download the content to your mobile device when you know you will lose coverage. You no longer have to make space to house or grow your collection. You no longer lose the movie if you lose a disc or a friend doesn't return it. Sean. Additionally, several streaming networks are the exclusive funding and distribution platform for some shows and films. Financially, streaming presents an attractive option. Your a la carte purchases remain yours, and in some cases upgrade from SD to HD to 4K without need for user input. Plus, when subscribing to a network, humans get wide access to the full catalog of that network for a seemingly small monthly fee. Accordingly, with the convenience and affordability factors, streaming has widespread popularity among humans and has become the dominant form of on-demand content consumption. Because of this, films are now released on digital distribution streaming formats first, before disc. Furthermore, studios are more often not bothering to release a 4K version of a current release on disc, so that the only 4K version in many cases for current releases is only on digital. Now, there are some disadvantages to this format. One is that while the formats are presented as 4K HDR with Atmos sound, the reality is that the quality of that delivery can be impacted by the method itself. These files are mastered for efficiency, for streaming delivery over the internet. This forces the bitrate of that file playing to be low, relative to what the bitrate would be for a laser leisurely reading a fully packed disk in a tray. Practically speaking, this leads to buffering, blocky compression artifacts, flickering line boundaries and gradients known as banding, and poor contrast from low black levels. All the streaming platforms have been steadily working on these issues, but they are still there and apparent when you know what you're missing. But as the quality increases, the risks of getting your content from streaming sources, either through subscription or SVOD purchases, is increasing. Titles disappear from streaming rosters more often and are starting to disappear from purchases, which underscores the limited ownership that streaming gives consumers, which is not ownership at all, but instead a license. Furthermore, while physical media is declining, it's not going without a fight. Boutique studios are gaining exclusive release deals for 4K versions of catalog films, which is in part why we are reviewing specific discs here, because they're the only format these films exist on in 4K. This leans into the natural strength of discs as the fidelity format, given their capacity and full access all at once. Consequently, discs have an elevated visual and audio presentation relative to streaming. All 4K is not the same, and all Atmos is not the same. The bitrate counts. However, the gap between streaming and disc is decreasing over time, and streaming bit rates and compression techniques are improving. The banding, artifacting, frame and resolution drops are becoming memories of early days. However, discs are also relatively permanent. While removal of a la carte purchases is rare, streaming subscriptions typically see a rapid turnover of catalog titles as competition and costs ramp up between streaming platforms. Meanwhile, one's disc collection remains one's disc collection for all time. 4K discs are much less prone to scratches and disc rot as previous iterations of disc formats. Plus, more recently, even while retailers and studios pull back from disc distribution, and 4K discs in particular, boutique labels have been producing 4K collector's editions of catalog titles on disc only. So not on digital distribution platforms at all. These fidelity and catalog advantages make discs a favorite amongst collectors and film aficionados, as well as that subset of that group that also have a large screen or dedicated theater in their home, with which to fully realize those visual and audio benefits when the image and sound is scaled to that type of a small cinema. These advantages tend to matter less when the viewing model is more on the go or scaled to fit in among a range of other entertainment and life scheduling factors. Now, unfortunately, the disc format has some issues as well. There is a sizable margin of error in replication. This causes defects a small percentage of time that are either addressed by recall or not at all. There are also more frequent delays in releases. If a release date is set, frequently a small quantity is made, and there are delays in getting the discs, like the recent James Cameron catalog releases. Other times, a release date merely gets delayed and restated for a later date. This happens with boutique labels more often. For example, Kino Lorber had set the iconic AFI 100 film High Noon for release on April 16th, but had been delayed to a May 7th date. And as we noted in our review of that film, disc publishing can also overly compress a film file to fit the cheaper low-capacity discs. For example, Paramount is releasing Once Upon a Time in the West on a 66 gigabyte disc with a 53.4 gigabyte file with some excess grain and detail reduced, while the existing Kaleidoscape file clocks in at 86.8 gigabytes and shows an authentic level of grain and detail, as noted by film and disc expert Bill Hunt. We can confirm that the Kaleidoscape version feels like watching an original film in its original theatrical run, which is a truly wondrous opportunity, given that so many of those moments dissolve into the mists of time. Now, local server is the Venn diagram overlap of convenience and fidelity. For local server, there are options where you convert your disks to files and play them through an app, or the single provider option of Kaleidoscape, where you download files and play them through a player. These options appear to cover the best of both worlds. However, both are limited. The conversion of disks is time-consuming and is limited to the availability of disks released and the issues that they contain on board. The download of Kaleidoscape files takes minutes and is simple and therefore much more convenient then ordering discs that are often sold out, waiting for them to be released in the next window and shipped to your home before you can play or convert them. Plus, since the Kaleidoscape files are derived from theatrical mezzanine files and not subject to disk space limitations, the file size and bitrate of some Kaleidoscape files exceeds that of disk. However, the catalog of titles is not comprehensive. While Kaleidoscape has some catalog and several current release titles in 4K that are not available on disk, the disk format has several catalog and some current release titles in 4K that are not on Kaleidoscape. Furthermore, both of these options have higher upfront costs than streaming and discs, each of which only require a player device to get started. However, local server options require an investment of hard drive storage and, with Kaleidoscape, a luxury markup for their proprietary hardware. These various factors do make it clear that there is no single solution, as many humans have been conditioned to accept in previous eras. This basic tension bleeds over into the passions humans can have for their hobbies, and the defiant stands that can take on in forums and video sharing platforms. They can often demonstrate precision in taking apart the preferred options of others, while casting a blind eye to the failings of their own preferred options. This scenario is particularly obtuse when the exact same principle is in play, whether it's convenience, fidelity, or some other seeming objective value. The tribal allegiance, once formed, becomes difficult to see beyond, even when presented with the objective principle their original allegiance was based on. Now, at this point, one may ask if we are still talking about movie formats, or if we are somehow extrapolating to more of the human condition along the way. The answer is yes. And interestingly, that is the same answer we have for which format we pick as the best. Our answer is yes. They all are. Let us tell you, if it makes you all uncomfortable to have multiple home video formats in a single planet's global economy, then you're not going to handle the galaxy's vast range of formats. We are lucky to have this diversity of formats to choose from. We are always better off when we have options. Yes, we trade off the simplicity of a single source model. But as we experience time and time again, a monopolistic, monolithic approach is rarely the most effective approach. More often than not, it introduces artificial gatekeeping, cost inflation, and reduced innovation. Instead, if we accept that we may need to adopt all three sources in some way, we can have the best of all galaxies. Diversity requires flexibility, but delivers a better experience. And again, are we still talking about movie formats, or are we actually talking about ways to break out of tribal thinking? Again, our answer is yes. We recommend being kind, asking questions, setting your format aside, and being your own being. We will pause there. Of course, if you have further thoughts, please post in the comments section below. And if you would like to see more content like this from us, please like, subscribe, and comment so that we can continue to have the human voice reflected in the cosmos. Until next time, farewell, humans.